In this movie, I want to talk about how to access some libraries that come with Vectorworks and how these interact with the resource browser. And once we've done that, then in the next movie I'll go on and talk about how you can edit plant graphics. Vectorworks ships with a very large number of libraries, and the most useful way to access these is via the resource browser. Now, if you don't have this floating palette open, then, or you've accidentally closed it, you can always open it from the palettes menu on Macintosh or Windows, and you'll see here it's the resource browser. It can also be opened with a keyboard shortcut. Now, when you access a library from the resource browser, generally what you want to do is to add that library as a favorite file, and that's an expression that Vectorworks uses to describe libraries that are frequently accessed from the resource browser and are permanently available in the resource browser. Now, there are two ways that you can access a library. If you only want to look at a library temporarily as a once-off thing and then basically not look at it again, then you can use this feature here, which is Vectorworks libraries. Now, this is going to take you to the folder that contains the Vectorworks libraries. So let's choose this, and what we have here, if I just collapse some of these, and we've gone to the Vectorworks application folder. So on a Macintosh, we are in on our Mac HD applications Vectorworks 2013 libraries folder. On a Windows computer, it will be the My Computer or Computer Program Files Vectorworks 2013 libraries. So very similar on either Mac or Windows. And so we're in the folder here now, and all of these folders here contain files that you can link or create a shortcut to, or bookmark is another expression you might be familiar with, to appear in the resource browser. And the ones we're particularly interested in are the objects, landscape and site. So let's expand that, and you'll see here that there are quite a few that pertain to landscape design. There's rocks, stipples, and so on. And the OSCAD specific library is here, and you can see that there are some Osbreed plant images there and a lot of other 2D plant images and so on. The one that we want to look at specifically, or there's two, are these two here, plant objects and plant objects 02. So let's select the plant objects one and click open. And what that's going to do is to open this, and you'll see now that file is here at the bottom of the resource browser, plant objects. Now remember, this is for a file that you're only going to view momentarily or for a while. You don't want it permanently added to the resource browser. But now that I have that file here, I can see everything that is in that other file. I don't have that file open, but I can see its contents from the resource browser here. And currently I'm viewing these items in the resource browser by icon. So you can see icons here of various plants. If you're seeing this in a list view, then you can click up here, and you'll see here that it's probably just off the edge there, but this is thumbnails and list. If it's in list view, it's going to look like this. If it's in thumbnail view, and I think thumbnails is a more useful way to view it, then you'll see the various categories of resources that you can access, and you can expand and contract those. So if I wanted to use any of these plants, I could simply drag it into the drawing, and that plant would appear in the drawing. But the same applies to other things here. So you'll see, if we go to gradients, for example, I could take a gradient out of this file and drag it over an object, and that object will take on the gradient. So what we're doing is essentially pulling resources from other files into our active file. This little button here represents the home button. Currently this file is called Untitled 8, and when I click this home button you'll see that this is now Untitled 8, and that means that what I'm looking at in here now are the contents of this active file. And you can see here's the blue bloom gradient that I just imported, and if we look in Symbols and Plugin Objects, there's the evergreen tree that I just imported by drag and drop. Okay, so that was like just temporarily looking at that file, but what we actually want to do is to add a few files permanently to the resource browser so that they will appear in this list here below the heading Favorites. So let's go ahead and do that, and we do that from this Files menu up here. If you mouse down over this little arrow, you'll see Add New Favorite Files. So we'll choose that again, and we navigate to exactly the same place on our hard drive. Macintosh, Applications, Vectorworks 2013, Libraries. And on Windows that's going to be My Computer or Computer, Program Files, Vectorworks 2013, Libraries. Now again, the ones we're interested in are the landscape and site ones, and the two that I want to add for the moment are these two here. And you can add multiple libraries at the same time by pressing the Shift key down, or the Control key on Windows, or the Command key on a Mac, and click on a second or third or fourth file that you want to select. If these are not contiguous, in other words if you're picking them from the list but they're not next to each other, then you have to press the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on a PC. So these are the only two that we want, this one here and this one here. So we'll select both of those and click Open. Now nothing's apparently happened, but in fact it has. And if we drop down this list here again, you can now see that these two objects here, or these two files here, are now permanently in the favorites list in this drawing, on my computer. Sorry, not only in this drawing, and that's an important point to make. Just delete these from here. And that is that if I quit Vectorworks and go on holiday for 3 weeks and come back, these favorite files are still going to be here for me to access. So they'll be there until I remove them, and I can remove them in the same way that I added them using this menu here. So you'll see there's Add and there's also Remove up here. So let's see what happens when we switch to one of these favorite files. Let's go look at Plant Objects, and again we can see this by icon view. We've got gradients, hatches. So some of the plants use hatches, some of the plants use gradients. They use various different line types, so you see those there. And there are symbol folders, and what we're particularly interested in are these items here. So these are all the predefined, or some of the predefined plant objects. Let's take a look at the O2 file, and again you can see here that there's a number of pre-configured ones here as well. Now all of these are generic, and by that I mean they don't have any species information attached, and that's because in different areas of the world people use different species, and you can attach those, nominate what you want to use each plant for. So you can either use these as they are, or you can edit them. But the purpose of this movie was essentially just to show you how to add those files to the resource browser. And of course once you've added them, then you can either drag and drop these into the drawing, and that's just going to place an instance of this onto the drawing, and you'll see this is a plant. Let's do that again. We'll do it with this one, drag and drop onto the drawing. If I click and select it, you'll see it's a different plant. And let's go to the plant objects and maybe pick one of these ones. that one's obviously got a tag that's set to turn on, and there's another one there. So that's one way to use these. The other way is that you can double click these, and if you double click them, then what will happen is that the plant tool will become selected. You can see it's become selected over here, and I can now place these in my drawing with any of the placement modes that are available, and the placement modes are covered in a separate movie that I recommend that you watch. So if I wanted these in a row, for example, then I could do this. Obviously the spacing of those is a bit far apart. We might need to change that to something like a meter or less. So we've got our plant objects added as favorite files in here, and so in the next movie we'll talk about how you can customize these plant the 2D plant graphics that you can see here.